Hey Mike, thanks for doing this. Could you just start off with the basic breakdown of each of the two players and what you guys liked about them?
Yeah. No, thanks, Nate. Yeah, it was an exciting night. Obviously we had two picks, 49 and 58, and we got two 21-year-old young guys that we liked in this draft that were higher where we took them. And, especially with Tyrese, we can start there, at 49, obviously at Duke. Everyone's seen him play, had a great year this year going to the Final Four, and he got a lot better, 40% from three. And, we're excited about him because he's coming from a winning program. John Shire is a very good coach and, has obviously learned with him. And, the thing that attracted us was he can play on and off the ball. He's got great size at 6'5", can play some combo. And, on top of the 40% shooting, he comes from a winning pedigree. And especially this year, I think he was the fifth Duke player drafted. So basically their whole starting five was drafted. And, he can fill a role and, we're excited about him coming in here and showing what he can do. Salou Niang, played in Trento this past year, the last two seasons. He's he's gotten a lot better. Big credit to Primo Brezic and Igor Tadic, our two international scouts. They've been following him since he was like 15. He's 21, but in basketball years, he's probably around 18 or 19. The last 2 years, the strides he's made has been pretty incredible. Super, super athletic, 6'7", really long, can really guard. He was just the NBA EuroCamp MVP or Defensive Player of the Year. He's really good on the defensive side of the ball. His versatility there, can slash, good cutter, good finisher around the rim, but he's really got to improve his 3-point shooting. Not a great shooter right now, but it's improving. But we're just excited because we got two talented, two high character, and two very good players that we're excited to have, in our program here move forward.
I'm sure you'll get a lot of questions about Proctor too, but just for Niang real quick, could you just clarify the plan for him?
Yeah, he will stay overseas this upcoming year. The hope is he'll be able to play summer league with us. Um, the Italian national team is playing in Eurobasket in August, September, so he could potentially be a part of that as well, which would be great for him. But he will stay in Italy next year and play with Virtus Bologna, a EuroLeague team. So it'll be a great opportunity for him to play at the highest level over there, and we'll be tracking him and keeping tabs on him.
Danny?
Hey Mike, just with Proctor, as you look at his skill set, what skills stand out to you for him that are NBA ready coming out of Duke?
Yeah, I think, obviously his shooting piece, he can really shoot. This year was a career high, 40%. And you can't have enough ball handlers. Obviously he can play on and off the ball, which is attractive. You can run him off screens. He can play pick and roll. He can get in the paint. He's got a good mid-range game. He makes plays for others. And he's 6'5", and he's 21 too. So, I mean, he came over a year earlier to Duke probably than he should have and, was there 3 years. But we just like his versatility offensively, where he can play on and off the ball. Obviously, good size where you can play him at the two some. His body's gotten a lot better since the end of the season. We ended up seeing him at his pro day in California in May, and I think he put on about 11 pounds. So he's definitely worked on his body, and just the shooting piece really attracted us in his youth. And he's obviously a great kid and a worker, and we're excited to have him.
How attractive is it in that spot to be picking somebody that spends a little bit more time in college, has a little bit more seasoning being at Duke for 3 years?
Yeah, I think we look at that because we want to bring in winners here. Obviously we're where our team is now, we're trying to win. And, what he did this year, especially playing with, 5 draft picks on the starting five, showing that he could play a role around better players. So he's not coming in necessarily, hey, I'm coming from a smaller school or I was the best player. I need all the shots. He knew how to play a role around those guys. And, he did that to a high level this year. And, that's what really attracted us to bring him.
Chris?
Hey Mike, how's it going?
What's up, Chris?
Hey, when it comes to Proctor, are you giving him a multi-year deal right off the rip as opposed to a two-way or something along those lines? What was the reasoning behind that, and what does that say about like how you view his potential for making an immediate impact on this team?
Yeah, no, I mean, we had him almost as a first round grade. So for him to fall to 49 was something we were very excited about. Obviously having a roster spot, I think, helped through the process. I think during the draft process, we got guys to come in that if we're offering two ways, probably wouldn't have been the case. So having him come to us and, get some help for him to come to 49, I think really, really helped, really attracted us and for him to come. So we're just excited about him. And, obviously we all know our finances with our roster. So doing this obviously was part of it. And, having the roster spot was something we really needed to do.
What impact, if at all, does getting a guy like Proctor, somebody who you said you had graded as a first round pick, what impact does that have on the free agency status of Sam Merrill and Ty Jerome and your desire to bring those guys back?
Yeah, I don't think it changes it much at all. I think with this pick, we were just going to take the best talent there and then the guy we like the most. And, Tyrese was that guy. And like I kind of said earlier, you can't have enough ball handlers. And he's 21. He's still got a lot of upside. We're excited for him to, work with Kenny and his group and get him in here and just kind of see what happens.
Ethan?
Hi, Mike. Hope you're having a good summer so far.
Thank
Uh,
you.
just trying to figure out, you talked about the stashing of a player. What does the timeline look like, and how involved are you guys in the process of them being overseas and still getting them into the right form that you want them to be to come and play in the NBA at some point?
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a lot of experience. You could go all the way back to Jetty Osman when we drafted him. He stayed over in Turkey for 2 years. Then we finally brought him over. Obviously, we have Khalifa Diop right now over in Spain. Luke Travers stayed in Australia for 2 years before bringing him over. And now Salou will be over there for at least a year, if not more. So I think our approach is just, hey, we really like you. Obviously, like I said, Primo Brezic and Igor Tadic are two international guys. They see them 8 to 10 times probably live during the season. I'm texting with them. I go over there 2, 3 times a year to see him. Kobe, Brandon Weems, Brendan Yu, our whole scouting department will go over there and see him, show him love, obviously stay in touch with him and show them like, they're part of our family. Even though they're playing overseas, we still have their draft rights and we still want to invest into them. And that's what we're going to do with Salou again. And, he's playing in a great, great league in the Euro League. He's going to play for a great coach there in Virtus, and the Italian league's very strong as well. So our approach is just like, hey, obviously these kids want to get drafted, but not bringing them over too soon, just so because we want them to succeed. We don't want them to come over and fail. So I think like when the time is right for these guys to come over, kind of like Jetty, he was ready after 2 years, and obviously he had a good NBA career. So I think it's just kind of a wait and see approach, and obviously love them up. Obviously we follow every game, and just kind of see where it goes.
You mentioned Proctor's ball handling and his ability to facilitate a little bit, but he's also a guy that's known to be able to defend a little bit out on the perimeter. How important does that part pull into you guys when it comes to the versatility of this team and then the offense and defensive side of the ball, knowing how he's going to be able to contribute on both ends?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, his size, 6'5", and I'm sure when you guys see him when he comes into town in summer league, he's gotten stronger in his upper body. So, I mean, as you watch these playoffs, he's every team can guard. You see the finals with Indiana, Oklahoma, they're two of the best defensive teams in the league. So, especially at his size at 6'5", I think is very, very intriguing. And him getting stronger and playing in a great program at Duke, he learned how to defend, and then now coming to the NBA. We thought, he can be definitely a two-way player along with his offensive skill set.
Cammy?
Hey, Mike, you kind of touched on the trajectory angle for both Proctor and Niang. Proctor getting better each year at Duke, Niang growing in Italy. How much did that already upward motion play into the value of the two guys, like as you're obviously looking for them to develop?
Yeah, I mean that was huge because we want guys to bring in here that still have upside and still have some room to grow. And with Kenny and his staff, I mean you look at everyone on our roster this year, 1 through 18, everyone got better, and a lot of people had career years. So Kenny's one of the best with player development, so I think there'll definitely be an uptick with Tyrese and Salou with their time with him. And they're 21. They're not 23, 24, but in 2, 3 years, how are they going to look? And I think with who they are as human beings and workers too, you got to have that along with their skill set, and we're just excited what they can become.
And for you guys, what was the process like of obviously being inactive day one, kind of waiting around, waiting for guys you like? What was that like for you guys as an organization?
Yeah. Well, that first round, we're always active. I mean, you guys know Kobe very well, so we're always in the mix for everything. We're going to make those calls and we want to know what's going on because if there's an opportunity to strike, we want to do it and be aggressive. And, nothing obviously transpired last night, but, today with these two picks, we were waiting to see what could happen. There were maybe some opportunities to move up, but with Tyrese and Salou, I think, we got two guys that we were really hoping to get at the beginning of the night.
Thanks.
Spencer?
Hey, Mike. So with when it comes to Tyrese, no shortage with this organization taking Aussies. So with the NBA Academy, just how much of a role does the input from that stuff also play into these types of selections?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean it definitely plays a role. I mean, obviously you look in the NBA, there's so many Australians now in the league having a lot of success. Obviously our favorite Matthew Dellavedova, was one of the guys that we had here that, had a great career for us winning a championship. But with Tyrese, I mean, he got better and better each year. Obviously going to Duke from Australia is a big deal, especially for overseas. So he's someone we targeted and we've been scouting him for years. So just to see his progress year to year to where he is now and the year he had obviously with Duke, he was someone we were hoping we could get in this draft in the second round.